Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So, in this video, we're going to talk about a cold case. To be honest, this is a cold case, it's an unsolved case. Will it ever be solved? I just don't know, but I wanted to do this video for quite a long time because this girl, Amber Tuccaro, um, she deserves to be remembered. Although this case hasn't so far resulted in anyone being charged or, any justice, unfortunately for Amber, she needs to be remembered, doesn't she? She was born on the 3rd of January 1990 in Alberta in Canada. Amber was a single parent, a Canadian First Nations woman from Fort McMurray, and she was a member of the Mickey Sioux Cree First Nation. So, at the time of her disappearance, she was living in Fort McMurray in Alberta with her mother and her 14-month-old son, Jacob. And on the 18th of August in 2010, at only 20 years old, Amber took a lift from an unidentified man near Edmonton, and she was never seen alive again. And a long 2 years later, sadly, her remains were found in a rural field in Leduc County, Alberta. Now, this was a bittersweet moment for Amber's family because at last they knew what had become of her, but it, of course, was the worst case scenario. And although when I say they knew what had become of her, they knew that she was deceased, but even to this day, they sadly don't know exactly what happened to Alberta. But we do know some things, but we don't know who the culprit was or whether the police maybe have a good idea, but nobody has ever been brought to account so far for the death of Amber. Her family, they'd never be able to hug her or speak to her again. They'd suspected this because she'd been missing for quite a long time, but now it was confirmed. So, Amber, bless her, let's chat about Amber.
We're just heading south of Beaumont, or north of Beaumont.
We're heading north of Beaumont. Yo, where are we going? No, this is a... Are you kidding me? You better not be taking me anywhere I don't want to go. I want to go into the city. Jeez. Yo, we're not going into the city, are we? No, we're not.
Yes.
So where the f*** these roads going to?
50th Street.
50th Street. Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Yo, where are we going?
50th Street.
50th Street.
50th Street.
East, right?
Over town. Valley.
Now, that was the last time anything was ever heard from Amber. That was Amber's last words, or that we know of. There is a longer tape. There is a longer tape recording of that phone call, but this is all that the police have released. Now, Amber is one of the many, many missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Canada, and particularly those cases occurring along the Highway of Tears. Let's have a look at the Highway of Tears. And the reason it's called this is because so many women have gone missing. So a lot of women, especially Indigenous women, often they don't, don't have much money. So they do a lot of hitchhiking. And this, it seems, is what happened to Amber, that she took a lift from somebody she didn't know. And you can hear from that phone call, this man was taking her somewhere that she didn't want to go. And we can only imagine what happened at the end of it. So there's been although Amber, what happened to Amber isn't thought to be along that actual highway, but because of the phone call, of course, that's made it, thing is, with something like that, even though it's distressing to listen to it, it brings it more alive, doesn't it? But Amber is not the only woman, Indigenous woman, that has gone missing or found murdered, as Amber was. So lots of them were found, women have disappeared, lots have been found murdered. You can see the terrain there. It's a very lonely sort of stretch of road. There's lots of places to hide a body. So, quite often, unfortunately, these girls just don't get found. Anyway, Amber did get found. But as I say, it was the worst possible scenario for her family. Even though in those couple of years they probably imagined that she was probably deceased. There was probably a part of them that wondered if she'd run away, or after hearing that telephone conversation, you'd be struggling to think that, wouldn't you? So yeah, although her case occurred in Alberta and not on that specific 750 kilometre stretch of Highway 16 in British Columbia, officially known as the Highway of Tears, her story is a prime example of the whole issue. The RCMP, that's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, are accused often of ignoring or not investigating crimes against Indigenous women due to racism and prejudice. And the Highway of Tears is the systematic issue of missing and murder. It's not only the road, it's the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women across Canada, and highlights similar patterns of police negligence and the vulnerability of Indigenous women to violence. So let's just have a chat about her actual disappearance, how it happened. So what we know is that on August the 17th, 2016, Amber was at home with her 14-month-old son Jacob and her mother when a friend stopped by and invited her and her son on a trip south to Edmonton. Now, although Amber's mother, Vivian, expressed reservations about this trip, Amber was excited by the invite and she decided to go. So she was a young girl, she was 20, she was a mother, but she was still young, wasn't she? The next day, the trio so she took Jacob with her. So although Amber was a mother, she was still just a young girl, wasn't she? And she wanted to go on this trip with her friend. So her, Jacob, and her friend flew from Fort McMurray, Canada, to Edmonton the next day. They checked into a motel there that evening in Nixu, which is a town just outside Edmonton, because it had cheaper room rates than the city itself, and they planned to head into Edmonton the following day. However, at some time between 7:30 and 8:30 that evening, Amber left the hotel room, so that's quite late, isn't it, at night, leaving Jacob in her friend's care we don't know why. We don't know why still. The friend has not been named. I'm not saying that the friend is, thought to be anything to do with what happened to Amber, but it's just strange that we don't know anything about this friend. And it has also never been made clear exactly why Amber decided to go out that night. So anyway, whatever the reason, she decided to go, and not only that, she decided to go alone. And not only that, hitchhike into the city. And it was probably something, to be fair, that Amber had done many times, despite warnings from her mum. You can imagine her mum would be saying to her, don't do it, etc. Or if apparently her mum said to her, if you do it, make sure you're on the phone to somebody. But of course, financially, it's free to hitchhike, isn't it? So, And as I say, she'd probably done it many, many times, but her luck, unfortunately, did run out that night. So Amber's mum apparently had always told her to be on the phone when she went hitchhiking, as a way to deter anything bad from happening, even if it was only an act and no one was on the other side of, on the other side of the line. Now, that is really good advice, of course, but unfortunately it did not help Amber. So apparently Amber remembered her mother's advice and she called her brother from the car, who was in prison at the time. Now, I'm not sure if it was her who called him or he happened to call her, but it happened, he was in prison, and because of that, unknown to everybody, the call was being recorded. So the full call is 17 minutes in length, but only that snippet that I'm going to play again shortly has been released. Amber's mother was played the whole call, so you can only wonder what happened at the end of that call. It must be terribly traumatic for her to listen to that. So we can only imagine how harrowing that was, as it likely included the final moments of Amber's life. And in the snippet released, Amber was clearly concerned about the direction they were heading in, and the unknown male driver can be heard in the background assuring her they were heading east on a back road towards Edmonton. Now, police believe that the man actually drove south into rural Leduc County, as that is where her remains were found. Let's listen to that call again, or at least the snippet that was released by the police.
Bye.
We're just heading south of Beaumont, or north of Beaumont.
We're heading north of Beaumont. Yo, where are we going? No, this is Are you kidding me? You better not take me anywhere I don't want to go. I want to go into the city. Jeez. Yo, we're not going into the city, are we? No, we're not.
Yes.
So where are these roads going to?
50th Street.
50th Street. Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Yo, where are we going?
50th Street.
50th Street.
50th Street.
East, right?
Over town. Valley.
I just can't imagine how terrified that poor girl was when she realised he wasn't taking her to his destination. How terrifying, how terrifying. Anyway, as I say, it was quite a long time later, on the 1st of September 2012, Amber's remains were discovered by horseback riders. Now, this was in a field in Leduc County. I believe only her skull was recovered. Poor Amber. And she was positively identified by dental records. But that call that we've just listened to was not released until 2 years later. And despite several people identifying the voice, no suspect has been officially identified. There are some unofficial suspects, but I'm not going to talk about them because I don't, there's no proof, no evidence, or no evidence that the police, obviously the police cannot pin this crime on anyone in particular. So I think it's generally accepted that the RCMP failed miserably in Amber's case. Even they have acknowledged that themselves. It was their investigation of her disappearance was sharply criticised by her family, and they alleged that police downplayed their concerns. Certainly from the beginning, when Amber was reported missing, she was treated like a runaway, wasn't taken seriously, that something bad might have happened to her. Anyway, there was a federal review released in 2018, and that found that the RCMP's investigation was deficient and did not comply with procedures and guidelines. On the 4th of September 2010, a press release from the RCMP said they did not believe that Amber was in any danger. The family felt that the RCMP were not taking her disappearance seriously and that they were biased. The investigators were biased by stereotypes about Indigenous women. After Amber's remains were finally found on the 1st of September 2012, her family said police rarely shared updates about the murder investigation. And Amber's brother Paul was told by police that they had waited a year before releasing the audio of his sister and the unknown man to the public and media. Let's have a look at a picture of Paul. So, Amber came from quite a big family. She had a couple of brothers. We're going to talk about them. This is her brother Paul, and he's been heavily involved in this sort of scenario of the Highway of Tears, trying to create awareness about these women that go missing and are murdered, including his own sister. Bless him. So Amber's family filed a complaint with the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in 2014. After conducting their independent review of the investigation, the commission released a 120-page report in August 2018, and the conclusions were damning. So they said that the investigation was deficient in that various members were either not properly trained or did not adhere to their training, and that various members did not comply with procedures and guidelines. Another serious failing was found in that the RCMP did not begin investigating Amber's disappearance until a month after she was reported missing. Police initially told her family that she was probably out partying, and they needed to wait 24 hours before initiating a missing persons investigation. It also took 4 months for the RCMP officers investigating the disappearance to conduct any interviews, which the Commission described as unreasonable and unexplained. So I think you can genuinely sort of assume that they made a complete cock of this investigation. Finally, Amber was listed as a missing person, but she was then removed from the list based on alleged sightings, although none of them were actually confirmed. And it wasn't until the 23rd of September 2010 that she was put back on the list. No apology was made to the family for having removed her in the first place. And the Commission's report stated that removing Amber from the missing persons database was an erroneous decision. Really? No shit, Sherlock. So the RCMP was heavily criticised for not contacting or interviewing the woman that had travelled with Amber from Fort McMurray to Edmonton This person, whose name was redacted in the report, was never considered a person of interest. Then, unbelievably and inexplicably, a suitcase with Amber's belongings was accidentally destroyed by the investigators after they recovered it from her Nixu motel room. I literally do not even understand how that can happen. That seems to happen quite often, and not just with the RCMP. I've heard of it with other cases in all sorts of countries. Evidence disappearing, being destroyed by accident. Just ridiculous. The report said a constable and a corporal with the Leduc RCMP detachment, whose names were redacted, failed to follow policy or reasonable investigative practices for securing seized property. So even the investigators haven't, been held to account in this case. Deputy Commissioner Curtis Zablocki apologised to the family 11 months after the report was released on the 25th of July 2019 and said that the RCMP's investigation was, quote, not our best work. That's a bit of an understatement, isn't it? And the family, perhaps not surprisingly, rejected Zablocki's apology. Who can blame them? So, what is the current status for this poor girl and her family? What they've been through. Where are we now? Is anything ever likely to result? Is anybody ever going to be held accountable for the death of this young girl? And that she's a mother. They took this mother away from her child. He's had to grow up without her. Well, let's see what's the current status. To this day, Amber's case remains unsolved, as with many other cases of Indigenous women in Canada. And very sadly, again, some families just seem to get so much tragedy, don't they, in their lives. One of her other brothers, Conrad, he died at the young age of 43 years on April the 7th, 2024, without ever seeing justice for his sister, and he died of natural causes, I believe. I think I've got a picture of him somewhere. So Conrad was the first one to get united or reunited with Amber in the afterlife. But since then, there has been more tragedy in this family. Very sadly. Her mum, very recently, in the summer of 2025, her mum, who has this fantastic name, I just want to put a picture up of her. This is the mum with Amber's son, who, as I say, has had to grow up without his mum, thanks to some twonk who picked her up when she was hitchhiking and said he would, take her wherever it was she wanted to go. He didn't. He didn't, did he? So took her away from her son, from her mum, from her brothers, from all of her family and friends. So this is her mum, who's got this fantastic name, Tutsi Granjambi Tucarro. Now, I might have pronounced that wrong. I'm very sorry if I have. But what a great name. Bless her. Now, she passed, as I say, last year in the summer without ever seeing Amber's killer held to account, or at least in this world. I just sincerely hope and pray they're all together. But the search for Amber's killer continues. Amber's son Jacob, he's had to grow up without his mum, but he seems to have had at least a large extended family. And it looks like his Gmail did a lot to help bring him up, but now, of course, he's lost his Gmail too. So I hope he's okay. I hope he's coping okay. Anyway, I just sincerely hope and pray they're all together. Now, her brother Paul continues on the search continues trying to raise awareness for this, the Highway of Tears, and just Indigenous women's cases in general, but particularly of his sister. I really truly hope that one day there are answers. So yeah, rest in peace, Amber. I hope you are reunited at least with your family members. Now, whoever did this to Amber, we don't even know if they're still alive, do we, to be honest, because we don't know who it was. Are they connected to other disappearances, murders on the Highway of Tears? It's difficult to believe that a person who did something like this to Amber would only commit one crime. Are they likely to? Of course, there was no DNA because it took so long to find Amber. No DNA was found that they can match up with anybody. So all they have is that recording, that voice, and people have said they recognise the voice, and I presume the police have investigated into that, but not been able to actually build a case. Or is it true that they just don't really care? They don't care because it's an Indigenous woman. Is there a lack of effort on the RCMP's part? Some of the cases I've covered recently in Canada, I am starting to think, do they? I mean, are they any good, this police force? I don't know. Well, let me know what you think, especially if you are in Canada and you might have some sort of special insight that you can tell us. Are the RCMP that inefficient in general? Are they racist? Do they, I haven't seen, I'm just pushing myself to think of a case they've solved. I mean, I think there are some good, the police in all countries have their good points and their bad points, don't they? I think before I started my channel, I've been quite impressed with the Canadian police in cases like, the Barbie, Ken and Barbie killers, Paul Bernardo. And mind you, they cocked that up, didn't they? Because the woman that was involved in that, she sort of got away with it, didn't she? Because they made a plea deal with her before they'd seen the videos, which the videos, Carla, wasn't it? Carla Hamalka, I think. The videos that they found showed that she was a willing participant in the murders, and they'd already given her a plea deal. So that was a cock-up, wasn't it? They did well with Russell Williams, the guy who investigated Russell Williams, the colonel, certainly the guy who interrogated him. That was a masterclass in how to interrogate a suspected murderer, wasn't it? And get him to relax and eventually tell all. But of course, that's not the RCMP themselves, is it? I don't know. But anyway, I'm waffling a bit now. I don't mean to do that, because I just wonder, was this case such a disaster because Amber is an Indigenous woman, or are they just not very good in general? Or, am I being unfair? I mean, it's quite difficult to, well, no, it's not really difficult, is it? If someone goes missing, I know people go missing and sometimes they just turn up after a couple of days. Sometimes people do go missing and they're just out partying, and that does happen. But really, that phone call, maybe it took them a long time to find it. And also the fact that she had a little boy, surely it's less likely that someone's going to just do a runner and go off partying without telling their friend who's looking after their little boy. I mean, I do think it's not really clear why they went to that place in the first place, or why Amber was trying to get into the city. I think these are things that we don't know for sure yet, but maybe the police know, because they've obviously got, well, have they got her phone? No, probably haven't got her phone, have they? Where is her phone? Anyway, I just hope and pray. We'll all hope and pray, like this case, not only this one, but all the unsolved cases. Amber, her mum might have passed and her other brother, but Paul's still there waiting to see somebody being held to account for his sister's murder. And of course Jacob, that's his mum. So anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for caring about Amber and all other unsolved cases, and particularly Indigenous women. You know, some people do get sort of left behind. Some cases attract big attention, don't they? And the police seem to try harder because there's a lot more media attention and social media attention. But sometimes cases like Amber's, they slip through the cracks, don't they? So, okay, thank you for watching. I'll see you really soon, as always, in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Bye.